Good evening and welcome. Tonight, we are not rushing anywhere. There is nothing you need to solve, nothing you need to remember, and no notifications waiting for you. Instead, we are going to do something much simpler, and much rarer. We are going to slow down, take a deep breath, and step quietly into another time. Imagine turning the clock back, not just a few years, but more than half a century. Back to a New York City that feels familiar in name, yet completely different in rhythm. A city before glowing phone screens lit every face. Before endless scrolling, before instant messages, before the idea of being reachable at all times. Tonight, we are traveling to New Year's Eve in 1950s New York City, a place powered not by algorithms or batteries, but by neon lights, human voices, steam rising from sidewalks, and a shared sense of anticipation. This is New York in the mid-20th century. The air is cold, sharp, and full of movement. Times Square still blazes with light, but it is a different kind of brightness. Thousands of buzzing bulbs, hand-painted signs, and glowing advertisements humming softly against the winter sky. There are no massive digital screens yet, no constant video loops, no cameras held high above the crowd. What exists instead is something more grounded, more physical. A city you feel in your bones. It is New Year's Eve, and the city knows it. Even hours before midnight, there is a subtle tension in the air. Not stress, exactly more like expectation. The sense that something is about to happen, even if no one can quite say what. People walk a little faster. Store windows glitter more brightly. Radios hum in apartment kitchens, playing familiar voices and cheerful melodies that drift out into hallways and stairwells. In the 1950s, New Year's Eve is not about documenting the moment. There are no photos taken every few seconds, no carefully framed posts, no pressure to make the night look perfect for anyone else. The night exists only once, in real time, and when it is over, it lives on mostly in memories, slightly blurry, slightly exaggerated, and deeply personal. New York itself feels alive in a different way then. Louder, perhaps, but also more intimate. People speak to strangers because there is nothing else to do while waiting. Conversations happen on street corners, in delis, on subway platforms. Eye contact is not optional, it is part of daily life. And on a night like this, that closeness multiplies. Times Square, even in the 1950s, is already the symbolic heart of the celebration. It is crowded, yes, but not yet enclosed or fenced the way it will be decades later. The crowd feels organic, constantly shifting, spilling into side streets and back again. Some people have traveled from nearby neighborhoods. Others have come in from out of town, wearing heavier coats and wide-eyed expressions. Everyone is bundled up, layered in wool, scarves, gloves, and hope. There is a certain honesty to the scene. No one expects luxury. The cold is unavoidable. The sidewalks are hard. The wind does not care what night it is. And yet, people come anyway. They come because New Year's Eve is not about comfort, it is about presence. About being there when the year turns over, even if your feet are numb and your hat keeps slipping down over your eyes. This is a time when optimism feels different, too. The 1950s sit at a strange crossroads. The world has survived enormous upheaval, and the future feels wide open but undefined. There is belief in progress, in improvement, in tomorrow being somehow better than today. Not because of guarantees, but because that is what people choose to believe. You can hear that belief in the voices drifting from open apartment windows. Laughter. Music. Someone practicing the same tune on a piano over and over again. Somewhere nearby, a radio announcer reminds listeners how many hours remain until midnight. The voice is calm, reassuring, steady. There is no countdown anxiety, yet just time passing, 1 minute at a time. New Year's Eve in 1950s New York is not sleek or polished. It is messy. It is crowded. It smells faintly of coffee, winter coats, and the city itself. And that is exactly what makes it real. People do not come to Times Square expecting perfection. They come knowing that something might go wrong. Someone might lose a glove. Someone else might miss their friends in the crowd. Plans might change. Trains might be late. And still, they come. Because this night belongs to everyone. There is no single correct way to celebrate. Some people are heading to jazz clubs tucked away behind unmarked doors. Others are dressed for hotel ballrooms with live bands and polished floors. Many will end up in small apartments, packed shoulder to shoulder, balancing drinks on radiators and windowsills. And plenty of them will simply wander the streets, letting the city decide where they go next. What connects them all is not the destination, but the moment itself. In the 1950s, time feels heavier. Slower. You wait for things. You stand in line. You sit through radio programs from beginning to end. Midnight does not sneak up on you, it approaches deliberately, announced again and again, hour by hour. There is something comforting in that slowness, especially on a night dedicated to reflection. People think about where they were last year. About what changed. About what did not. Resolutions form quietly, often unspoken. Promises are made internally, without the expectation of public accountability. Whether they last or not almost does not matter. What matters is the act of hoping. The city, too, seems to pause just slightly, as if aware of its own role in the ritual. Taxis line the streets. Newsstands stay open late. Corner delis glow warmly against the dark, offering coffee, snacks, and a place to step inside and thaw out for a few minutes. Even New York, famously impatient, allows itself a moment of reflection. And if you listen closely, really listen, you can hear it. The low hum beneath everything else. The sound of millions of lives overlapping. Footsteps. Voices. Doors opening and closing. Laughter echoing down stairwells. Music drifting through thin apartment walls. This is New York before convenience, before efficiency, before everything became faster and louder. It is a city that demands attention simply by existing. A place where being present is unavoidable, and being part of something larger happens whether you plan for it or not. So tonight, as we begin this journey, there is no need to hurry. Let the noise fade into the background. Let the images form slowly. Picture the glow of neon against winter clouds. The press of coats in a crowd. The warmth of a deli doorway. The steady ticking of a clock somewhere nearby, counting down not urgently, just patiently. You have arrived in 1950s New York City on New Year's Eve. The year is almost over. The city is wide awake. And the story is just beginning. As the city settles into the final day of the year, the story quietly rewinds a few hours earlier, back before the crowds, before the music, before the anticipation reaches its peak. Morning arrives in 1950s New York City without ceremony. There is no gentle alarm melody, no glowing screen lighting up a bedside table. Instead, the day begins with sound. The clatter of pipes inside the walls. The distant rumble of traffic already awake below. Somewhere outside, a delivery truck backfires, echoing down the narrow street canyon. New York does not wake you politely, it simply continues moving, and you wake because it does. Inside a small Manhattan apartment, light slips through thin curtains, pale and winter muted. The room is compact, every inch carefully used. A narrow bed pressed against the wall. A dresser that has seen better years. A chair that holds yesterday's clothes, folded neatly not for style, but out of habit. Space is precious here, and nothing is wasted. The radiator clicks and hisses, doing its best against the cold. Sometimes it overheats the room, sometimes it barely works at all. There is no thermostat to adjust, no expectation of comfort. You learn to live with it, layering blankets or opening a window an inch, even in December. Getting out of bed takes effort. The floor is cold beneath bare feet. The air feels sharp at first breath. But staying in bed is not really an option. In the 1950s, especially in a city like New York, the day waits for no one. Sleeping in is a luxury few can afford, and fewer still allow themselves. In the kitchen, if the apartment has a separate one at all, there is just enough room to stand and turn around. A small table, perhaps with two mismatched chairs. A coffee pot waiting on the stove. Cabinets that creak when opened. Everything carries the subtle wear of daily use. Coffee is simple, strong, reliable. It does not come from a machine with buttons or settings. You measure it by instinct, pour water from the tap, and wait. The smell fills the room quickly, rich and grounding, cutting through the lingering chill. It is not fancy, but it does its job. Outside the window, the city is already alive. People walk briskly, collars turned up against the cold. A man carries a bundle of newspapers under one arm. A woman balances a handbag and a package, stepping carefully on icy pavement. Even on New Year's Eve, life continues. There is no scrolling through headlines. News comes from radio voices drifting through kitchens across the city, steady and familiar. Announcers speak with confidence, delivering updates, reminders, and cheerful remarks about the holiday ahead. The radio does not demand attention, it keeps you company. Getting ready is efficient, almost ritualistic. There is no decision paralysis. Clothes are chosen for warmth first, appearance second. Shirts are pressed not for style points, but because that is simply how things are done. Shoes are practical, built for walking, because everyone walks often more than they expect. The mirror above the sink offers an honest reflection. No filters. No adjustments. Just a face shaped by routine and responsibility. Hair is combed neatly, parted with care. The act is quiet, focused, familiar. There is comfort in repetition. In these apartments, mornings are rarely silent. Walls are thin. You hear footsteps above you, water running next door, a door closing somewhere down the hall. The building itself feels like a living thing, full of movement and shared existence. And yet, there is a certain privacy in it all. Everyone is aware of everyone else, but no one intrudes. It is an unspoken agreement of urban life. We live close, but we mind our own business. As coats are pulled on and scarves wrapped tight, there is a brief pause by the door. Keys are checked. Lights are turned off. The apartment is left behind, not locked away emotionally, but set aside until later. It is a place to return to, not a place to linger. The hallway smells faintly of cleaning solution and old paint. Stairwells echo with footsteps. Elevators, when present, move slowly and unpredictably. Many people prefer the stairs, even from several floors up, trusting their own legs more than machinery. Stepping outside is like stepping into motion. The cold hits immediately, brisk and honest. Breath becomes visible. The street is alive with sound, engines idling, horns signaling impatience, voices overlapping in quick exchanges. New York does not whisper, even early in the day. The sidewalks are crowded already. Office workers, shop clerks, delivery men, all moving with purpose. New Year's Eve does not cancel responsibility. For many, it is just another workday, shortened perhaps, but still demanding. There is an unspoken toughness to the morning routine. You show up. You move forward. You do not wait for ideal conditions. Comfort is secondary to momentum. This mindset shapes not just the day, but the people themselves. Street vendors begin setting up, stamping their feet to stay warm. The smell of roasted nuts drifts through the air. Newsstands display bold headlines, stacked neatly, ready for hands that will grab them without stopping. There is no rush to capture the moment. No one pauses to admire the scene. This is simply life as it exists, and that familiarity gives it strength. As the morning progresses, the city settles into its rhythm. Buses sigh as they pull away from stops. Subway entrances swallow streams of people heading underground, coats brushing shoulders, eyes forward. The stations below are warm, crowded, and alive with movement. Inside the subway cars, the day truly begins. Strangers sit side by side, coats touching, sharing space without acknowledgement. Some read newspapers. Others stare straight ahead. A few exchange quiet words. Everyone is headed somewhere, even if they are not entirely sure where the night will lead. There is anticipation, but it is muted. Controlled. The celebration comes later. For now, there are hours to fill, tasks to complete, time to pass. New Year's Eve in the 1950s does not start with excitement, it starts with endurance. With routine. With showing up, even when it is cold, even when the day ahead feels long. And perhaps that is what gives the night its meaning. Because by the time evening arrives, by the time the lights glow brighter and the music grows louder, everyone will have already earned their place there. Through early alarms. Cold floors. Crowded streets. Shared spaces and silent understanding. The city has carried them through another year, beginning with a simple morning like this one. And as the day moves forward, step by step, it brings them closer to midnight, whether they are thinking about it yet or not. The story continues. By late morning, the city has fully shaken off sleep. Whatever quiet existed at dawn has been replaced by momentum. New York moves now with confidence, each street layered with purpose. People no longer drift, they stride. The day has settled into its familiar pattern, and everyone seems to know exactly where they're supposed to be. This is not a city built for hesitation. In the 1950s, daily life runs on expectation. You are expected to show up. To be on time. To endure discomfort without comment. There is no language for burnout, no discussion of balance. You do what needs to be done, because that is what adulthood looks like. The discipline begins early and follows you everywhere. Workplaces open their doors whether it is the last day of the year or not. Offices hum with typewriters and conversation. Shops unlock their front gates and sweep yesterday's dust from the sidewalk. Factories release warm air into the cold streets as machines start their steady rhythm inside. Lunch breaks are short. Conversations are efficient. There is a shared understanding that the day must be completed before the night can be enjoyed. Even the way people walk reflects this mindset. Heads forward. Shoulders squared. Coats buttoned tight, not just against the cold, but against distraction. There is little room for drifting thoughts. The city demands focus. For many, discomfort is simply part of the background. Shoes pinch. Coats are heavy. Gloves itch. The cold seeps through layers no matter how carefully chosen. And yet, no one expects relief. You adjust, you adapt, and you move on. There is a quiet pride in this endurance. New York in the 1950s rewards toughness, not loudly, not publicly, but internally. You know you can handle the day because you have handled every day before it. That knowledge builds slowly, reinforced by repetition rather than praise. Meals are quick and functional. A sandwich eaten standing up. Coffee swallowed while leaning against a counter. Food fuels the body, not the moment. There will be time later for indulgence, perhaps, but not now. The radio continues to provide a steady backdrop. In shops and offices, it fills the air with music, announcements, and gentle reminders that tonight is special. The tone is cheerful but controlled. No urgency. No spectacle yet. Everyone is aware of the night ahead, but no one lets it interfere with responsibility. That restraint defines the era. There is a belief that celebration must be earned. That pleasure means more when it follows effort. The night will feel brighter because the day was long. Midnight will feel meaningful because it comes after endurance. Outside, the streets carry that same energy. Traffic thickens. Horns sound more frequently. Pedestrians weave through one another with practiced ease. No apologies are exchanged, there is no time for that. And yet, within this firmness, there is also connection. Strangers hold doors without thinking. Someone gives directions to a lost visitor. A shopkeeper offers a brief smile while ringing up a purchase. These moments are small, almost invisible, but they form the glue that holds the city together. Community here is not emotional, it is functional. People help because that is how things work. As afternoon approaches, the light begins to change. Winter sun slides lower between buildings, casting long shadows across the sidewalks. The temperature drops again, sharper now, more insistent. Coats are pulled tighter. Scarves adjusted. Hands tucked deeper into pockets. The workday starts to loosen its grip. Some offices close early. Shopkeepers glance at clocks more often. Conversations begin to include phrases like tonight and later. There is a subtle shift, not excitement yet, but permission. The city is allowing itself to anticipate. Even so, discipline does not vanish. There is still structure. Still order. People finish what they started. Desks are cleared. Registers are balanced. Floors are swept. Only then does the day begin to tilt toward evening. Stepping back outside after hours indoors feels different now. The cold is stronger, but the lights are warmer. Store windows glow against the darkening sky, reflecting movement and color. Decorations simple by modern standards add small touches of brightness. The sidewalks grow more crowded, not with urgency, but with possibility. People walk without quite knowing where they will end up. Plans remain flexible. Invitations are vague. "We will see" is a perfectly acceptable answer. The night does not need to be defined yet. There is comfort in that uncertainty. In this era, entertainment is not endless. Choices are limited, which somehow makes them feel larger. A single decision where to go, who to meet carries weight. And still, no one rushes. The discipline of the day lingers, even as anticipation grows. It keeps excitement contained, controlled, balanced. The city knows how to hold itself together. This is New York's quiet strength. By the time dusk fully settles, the rhythm of the streets has changed again. Work shoes are replaced with better ones. Hats are adjusted. Coats look sharper. There is effort now, not excessive, but intentional. People are preparing, mentally as much as physically. The day has done its work. It has shaped the night to come. And as the city transitions, step by step, from obligation to celebration, it does so without drama. Without announcement. Just movement continuing, one moment blending into the next. The discipline remains, even in joy. Because in 1950s New York, structure is not something you escape from, it is something that carries you forward. And with the day nearly complete, the city is ready to release its grip, just enough to welcome the night. The story moves on. By the time hunger finally makes itself known, it is no longer morning, but it is not quite afternoon either. The city pauses briefly in that in-between space, where the pace softens just enough to allow people to eat without fully stopping. This is when many New Yorkers of the 1950s drift toward a place that feels uniquely suited to the rhythm of the city, the automat. From the outside, it does not look particularly special. A modest storefront, wide windows glowing warmly against the winter air. But stepping inside feels like entering a small, self-contained world, one built for efficiency, routine, and quiet observation. The door opens with a familiar sound, letting in a quick rush of cold before closing again. Inside, the air is warmer, carrying the scent of coffee, bread, and something lightly toasted. The lighting is bright but gentle, reflecting off tiled floors and polished surfaces. Along the walls, rows of small glass windows stretch out in neat lines. Behind each one sits a prepared dish, waiting patiently. Sandwiches, pies, plates of simple, comforting food. Everything is visible. Nothing is hidden. There is no waiter, no small talk required. You approach the counter, exchange coins for change, and move along the wall, studying your options. Decisions are made quickly not because of pressure, but because everyone understands the system. This place is built for movement. You slip coins into the slot, turn the small metal knob, and the glass door opens with a soft click. The food is yours. No conversation necessary. There is something quietly reassuring about it. The process is predictable, fair, efficient. Everyone follows the same steps, whether they are office workers in pressed suits or laborers with tired hands. The automat does not care who you are. Tables are arranged simply, close enough that personal space is more suggestion than reality. People sit side by side, coats draped over chair backs, hats placed carefully on empty seats or laps. Trays clatter softly as they are set down. Conversations happen naturally here, but they are never forced. A remark about the weather. A shared comment about how crowded the streets are becoming. A quick exchange between regulars who recognize each other without ever having learned names. This is community without obligation. Some people eat in silence, reading newspapers spread wide across the table. Others watch the room instead, letting their eyes wander. There is a quiet satisfaction in simply being among others, sharing space without expectation. The automat attracts everyone. Students counting out coins carefully. Older couples who've been coming here for years. Workers, stopping in between shifts. Visitors curious about this efficient, modern way of eating. It is democratic in a way few places are. The city's pulse is especially clear here. You can sense how many different lives pass through in a single hour. Different routines. Different destinations. All intersecting briefly over coffee cups and plates that will soon be cleared away. There is no lingering for long. The chairs are comfortable enough, but not inviting. The unspoken rule is clear: eat, rest for a moment, then make room for the next person. And still, people do not rush. They sip coffee slowly. They take careful bites. They read entire articles. Time feels structured but not cruel. You are allowed to exist here, just not forever. Behind the counter, attendants move quietly, refilling compartments, wiping surfaces, keeping the system running smoothly. They do not draw attention to themselves. Their presence is steady, dependable. The automat runs like the city itself, visible on the surface, supported by constant, unseen effort. Outside, the streets continue to hum, but inside, the noise softens. Conversations blend into a low murmur. Utensils tap against plates. Someone laughs briefly, then returns to eating. It is easy to sit here longer than planned, watching the world pass through. A man removes his gloves and rubs his hands together before picking up his fork. A woman adjusts her hat before setting it. Beside her, a group of coworkers discuss where they might go later, their plans deliberately vague. New Year's Eve hangs in the air, acknowledged but not emphasized. No decorations scream for attention. No countdown clocks dominate the space. The celebration is still waiting its turn. What the automat offers instead is something quieter, a pause. A moment to refuel, physically and mentally, before the day continues. For many, this is the closest thing to rest they will get until the night is over. When the food is finished, trays are returned. Coats are pulled back on. Gloves slipped over fingers still warm from coffee cups. People stand, stretch slightly, and rejoin the flow. There are no goodbyes. No promises to meet again. Just movement continuing. Stepping back outside feels sharper now. The cold bites harder after the warmth. The sky has dimmed further, and the streetlights have begun to glow. The city is edging closer to evening. The automat remains behind, unchanged, waiting for the next wave of people. And in that way, it mirrors New York itself, constant, reliable, always ready to receive whoever walks through the door. As the day pushes on, fed and steady, the city carries everyone forward once more. The night is getting closer. Leaving the automat, the city feels slightly different than it did before. Nothing obvious has changed, and yet something has shifted. Perhaps it is the warmth still lingering in the body, or the quiet sense of being momentarily connected to strangers over shared tables. Whatever it is, it carries forward as people step back into the flow of the streets. In 1950s New York, places like the automat are more than just places to eat. They are pauses stitched into the fabric of the city, spaces where lives briefly overlap before separating again. And that pattern repeats everywhere. On sidewalks, in doorways, at street corners, people intersect constantly. Not dramatically. Not memorably. Just enough to remind each other that no one moves through this city alone. A man stops to light a cigarette, shielding the flame from the wind with practiced hands. A woman waits beside him, glancing at the traffic, tapping her foot lightly against the pavement. They do not speak, but they share the moment. When the light changes, they move on in opposite directions, never to meet again. This is how community works here. It is not built on long conversations or deep familiarity. It is built on rhythm. On shared spaces and repeated encounters. On recognizing faces without knowing names. The corner deli plays a similar role. Its windows glow softly, especially as daylight fades. Inside, shelves are packed tightly with everyday necessities, simple food, bottled drinks, newspapers stacked high. The bell above the door announces each arrival, and the shopkeeper looks up automatically, already prepared. There is comfort in this predictability. Regulars do not need to explain themselves. A nod is enough. The shopkeeper reaches for familiar items without asking. Payment is quick. Change is counted carefully into waiting hands. For newcomers, there is guidance without impatience. A suggestion. A quiet recommendation. No pressure. The deli does not rush anyone, but it does not linger either. Like the automat, it understands its place in the city's movement. People come here not just to buy things, but to orient themselves. To feel anchored. To step briefly out of the current before being pulled back in. Outside, street life continues to layer itself. Children weave between adults, tugged along by gloved hands. Couples walk shoulder to shoulder, matching each other's pace. Groups form and dissolve naturally, like eddies in a river. There is no expectation of isolation. Physical closeness is simply part of the deal. Coats brush. Bags bump. Apologies are rare, not because people are rude, but because contact is unavoidable. And still, there is respect. Eyes rarely linger. Everyone understands the invisible boundaries that allow millions to coexist without constant friction. It is a skill learned early and practiced daily. As afternoon deepens, these overlapping spaces become more animated. Voices grow louder. Laughter appears more frequently. The anticipation of the evening begins to show itself in small ways. Someone mentions plans in passing. Someone else asks a question about timing. A third person shrugs and smiles, content not to know yet. The city supports this uncertainty. It does not demand a plan. It offers options instead. At subway entrances, crowds thicken. The stairs hum with footsteps. The smell of damp concrete and metal rises from below. Trains arrive and depart with mechanical certainty, doors opening to release one group and swallow another. Inside the cars, the sense of shared experience intensifies. People stand close, holding onto poles or straps. Coats pressed together. Warmth builds. There is a quiet patience here, a willingness to endure the temporary discomfort for the sake of forward motion. Some riders read. Others watch the advertisements lining the walls. A few stare into space, thoughts drifting. Occasionally, conversation sparks. A comment about the weather. A question about a stop. A shared glance when the train lurches unexpectedly. These moments pass quickly, but they matter. They remind everyone that they are part of something larger. New York in the 1950s does not isolate by default. Privacy exists, but it is something you carry internally. The outside world is communal, whether you want it to be or not. And on New Year's Eve, that sense of shared presence grows stronger. There is an understanding, unspoken but widely felt, that everyone is moving toward the same moment. Midnight waits for no one, and yet it belongs to everyone. As people exit the subway and return to the streets, the city feels fuller. Brighter. More alive. The glow from storefronts reflects off windows and puddles, doubling the light. Music begins to spill out more freely now. Radios turned up. Doors opening and closing. Snatches of melody drifting into the open air. Even those with no plans feel included. Simply walking through the city on this day is enough. That is perhaps New York's greatest gift, participation without invitation. You do not need to be known. You do not need to belong to a group. Being here is sufficient. As evening approaches, these shared spaces become the backbone of the celebration. They carry people between destinations. They absorb uncertainty. They provide structure without rigidity. The city does not ask where you are going. It simply moves you along. And as it does, the feeling grows stronger, quiet but undeniable that something meaningful is approaching. Not because of spectacle, but because of accumulation. Hours of walking. Of working. Of eating beside strangers. Of standing shoulder to shoulder, underground. Of moving through the same spaces, again and again. All of it leads forward. The night is nearly ready. And New York, steady and patient, continues to hold everyone together as it always has through shared streets, shared pauses, and the simple act of moving side by side toward whatever comes next. The story goes on. As daylight finally begins to fade, the city takes on a new character. The sky over New York shifts gradually from pale winter gray to a deeper blue, then darker still, settling into night without ceremony. Streetlights flicker on one by one, casting warm pools of light onto sidewalks already worn smooth by millions of footsteps. The cold sharpens, reminding everyone that winter is firmly in control. This is the hour when the city feels busiest, yet somehow more relaxed. The workday has loosened its grip. Offices empty in waves. Shop doors lock for the night. People emerge onto the streets no longer bound by schedules, but not yet fully immersed in celebration. It is a transitional time, balanced delicately between responsibility and release. Department stores glow brightly now, their windows dressed carefully for the season. Displays are elaborate but restrained mannequins in tailored coats, polished shoes, elegant dresses arranged with intention. There is no flashing motion, no moving images, just stillness designed to invite the eye. Crowds gather naturally, slowing their pace to look. Inside these stores, the air is warm and dense with movement. Shoppers weave through aisles, carrying packages tied with string or tucked under arms. There is a sense of urgency here, but not panic. Everyone knows they are late, and everyone accepts it. Salespeople move quickly but politely, answering questions, folding garments, ringing bells at cash registers. The sound echoes through the space, rhythmic and familiar. Each purchase feels small, but together they form the ritual of preparation. This is not shopping for indulgence, it is shopping for the night ahead. Bottles are chosen carefully. Small gifts are wrapped quickly. Party supplies are gathered with practical consideration. Nothing extravagant. Nothing unnecessary. Just enough. Lines form at counters, but no one complains. Waiting is part of the experience. Conversations spark between strangers standing shoulder to shoulder, united by shared impatience and shared purpose. Outside, the sidewalks thicken further. People move in clusters now, friends meeting after work, couples linking arms, co-workers deciding whether to stay together or split off. Laughter appears more freely. Voices rise above the traffic. The city hums with anticipation, but it never quite tips into chaos. Even in the busiest moments, there is order. People know how to navigate crowds. They sidestep gracefully. They pause when necessary. Years of practice guide them without thought. Crosswalks fill and empty in waves. The sound of footsteps becomes constant, layered, almost musical. Above it all, horns punctuate the rhythm, not angry, just insistent reminders that movement must continue. Winter makes everything more physical. Hands ache from the cold. Cheeks sting. Breath clouds the air. Packages feel heavier. And still, no one turns back. The discomfort is accepted, almost expected. It gives the night texture. Food vendors thrive in this moment. The smell of roasted chestnuts, hot dogs, and coffee drifts through the streets, cutting through the cold like a promise. People stop briefly, hands wrapped around warm cups or paper bags, savoring the heat before moving on. These pauses are brief, but meaningful. They offer warmth not just to the body, but to the spirit. A reminder that comfort exists, even in small doses, even in the middle of motion. As evening deepens, traffic slows. Buses crawl through intersections. Taxis cluster near busy corners, drivers watching the sidewalks carefully for raised hands. Subway entrances glow brighter now, swallowing crowds dressed more deliberately than before. Better coats. Cleaner shoes. Hats worn with intention. There is effort in appearance, but not perfection. This is a city that values function over display. Inside the stations, the air is warmer, thick with sound and motion. Trains arrive packed and leave packed. There is little room to move, but no frustration. Everyone understands that this is part of the night. People adjust their stance, shift their weight, make space where they can. The shared endurance feels almost ceremonial. On platforms, posters advertise shows, products, and promises of modern living. They watch silently as the crowds pass, unchanged by the night's significance. The city does not pause for holidays. It absorbs them. Back above ground, the darkness is complete now. Lights reflect off windows and damp pavement, multiplying themselves. The streets feel brighter than they did during the day, illuminated not by the sun, but by human activity. Music escapes from doorways. Snippets of conversation float by. A group laughs loudly, then disappears into a crowd. A couple stops abruptly to check directions, blocking traffic momentarily before moving on. Nothing is static. This is the moment when plans begin to solidify or fall apart. Someone realizes a venue is too crowded. Someone else decides to try somewhere new. A phone call is made from a payphone, coins fed carefully into the slot. Messages are brief and to the point. There is no endless coordination. If you miss someone, you miss them. If plans change, you adapt. The city supports this flexibility. It offers alternatives at every corner. And through it all, the cold remains constant, shaping behavior, quickening steps, keeping people alert. It is impossible to forget where you are. New York makes sure of that. As people move through this crowded, glowing maze, there is a growing sense that the day has fully given way to the night. The work is done. The errands are nearly complete. What remains is choice. Where to go, who to meet, or whether to simply keep walking. This uncertainty is not stressful, it is freeing. Because no matter what happens next, the city will continue to move, to carry everyone forward, to provide warmth, light, and momentum. The celebration is no longer theoretical. It is happening already, in fragments, in passing moments, in shared smiles and hurried steps. Midnight is still hours away. But New York, dressed in winter and glowing with anticipation, is fully awake now, ready for whatever the night chooses to become. And the story continues. As evening settles in more firmly, attention begins to turn inward. Not inward in thought, but inward toward the small, private rituals that prepare people for being seen. In 1950s New York, going out is not casual. It carries weight. Even on a cold winter night, appearances matter, not for vanity, but for belonging. Clothing is more than fabric. It is a signal. Inside apartments across the city, lamps are switched on, casting warm pools of light against the early darkness. Coats are laid out on beds. Shoes are polished quickly, sometimes imperfectly. Mirrors are checked, then checked again. This is not about standing out. It is about fitting correctly into the moment. Men straighten collars and adjust ties that feel slightly too tight. Jackets are shrugged on and rolled at the shoulders until they sit just right. Hats are chosen carefully, felt brushed clean, brims aligned just so. Women smooth dresses that restrict movement but promise structure. Shoes are practical enough to walk in, but formal enough to be seen. Layers are considered, warmth balanced against shape, comfort weighed against expectation. There is no illusion that these clothes feel good. They pinch, they press, they demand awareness. But that discomfort is familiar, almost reassuring. It confirms that effort has been made. In this era, effort is visible. To appear properly dressed is to show respect not just for others, but for the occasion itself. New Year's Eve is not something you stumble into. You prepare for it, even if your plans are uncertain. The mirror reflects a version of the self shaped by social rules. Posture straightens naturally. Movements become more deliberate. Clothing changes how people carry themselves, and they accept that transformation willingly. This is the cost of participation. Hair becomes its own quiet battle. Combs move carefully through strands, parting, smoothing, taming. Pomade is applied with restraint but confidence, fingers working it in until hair holds its place. The shine is intentional, signaling neatness and control. For women, hair is set earlier in the day, curled and pinned, then released carefully now. Hairspray hangs briefly in the air, settling into something firm and unyielding. Once styled, there is no touching. The shape must survive the night. These rituals are not rushed. They are practiced. Repeated countless times before. Hands know what to do without instruction. The room smells faintly of fabric, metal, and grooming products. Windows fog slightly from the warmth inside meeting the cold outside. There is a pause after getting dressed. A moment of assessment. A breath. A quiet acknowledgement that this version of the self will soon step into public view. Coats go on last, heavy and enveloping, hiding the careful effort beneath. Gloves are pulled tight. Scarves wrapped securely. The transformation is sealed. Out in the hallways, doors open and close in sequence. Footsteps echo. Neighbors pass one another with brief nods, glancing subtly, noticing effort without comment. Everyone is doing the same thing. Stepping outside again feels different now. The cold is sharper against skin warmed by preparation. Breath appears more clearly. The weight of coats and clothing makes movement slightly slower, more deliberate. The streets reflect this shift. People look different than they did earlier, straighter, more composed. There is a sense of readiness, of being equipped for the night rather than merely moving through it. Crowds grow denser, but also more orderly. People give each other a bit more space, aware of fragile hairstyles and careful outfits. Contact still happens, but it is managed. This is a city skilled at negotiation. Walking becomes a measured process. Steps shortened to avoid slipping, pace adjusted to match companions. There is attention now, not anxiety, but presence. Conversations begin to sound different, too. Lighter. More open. The topics shift toward plans, expectations, and vague hopes for the coming year. No one says too much. There is a shared understanding that the night is long, and words can wait. In windows, reflections multiply. You catch glimpses of yourself alongside strangers, momentarily sharing a frame before moving on. The city turns everyone into part of the scenery. Under streetlights, hats cast shadows across faces. Coats create uniformity. Individual differences blur slightly, replaced by a collective image of readiness. This is New York dressed for the evening. Even those with no clear destination adopt the posture of purpose. Wandering is allowed, but it must look intentional. Standing still too long draws attention. Movement is safer. The city rewards motion. As people approach gathering places, clubs, halls, apartments, the transformation becomes complete. Laughter grows louder. Gestures expand. Shoulders relax just slightly, enough to suggest that the hardest part is over. Getting ready was the barrier. Now, participation feels earned. Inside venues, coats are checked or piled onto beds. The layers come off, revealing the effort beneath. Compliments are exchanged, brief and sincere. You look good. That suits you. No exaggeration. No overstatement. Just acknowledgement. Clothing in this moment becomes a bridge. It connects people, sets the tone, defines the space. You know how to behave by how everyone looks. There is comfort in that clarity. This is not a world of endless choice. Rules exist, and people follow them willingly. The structure removes uncertainty, allowing the mind to rest. As the night continues to unfold, clothing will crease. Shoes will ache. Hair will lose its shape. But for now, everything is intact. The night feels full of possibility, contained neatly within pressed fabric and polished leather. Outside, the city continues to glow. Inside, people settle into the roles they have prepared for: friends, guests, strangers sharing a moment. The discomfort fades into the background. The effort pays off. Because in 1950s New York, to dress for the night is not about impressing others. It is about showing that you belong to the moment. And with everyone dressed, prepared, and moving forward together, the city takes another step closer to midnight. The story goes on. Once the clothes are chosen and the coats fastened, attention turns to one last detail, small, almost invisible, yet deeply important. Hair. In 1950s New York, hair is not casual. It is not left to chance. It is shaped, controlled, and expected to stay that way. How your hair looks is often read as a reflection of how seriously you take the world around you. Inside bathrooms and bedrooms, mirrors fog slightly from warm air. Lights cast steady illumination over careful hands at work. This is a quiet moment, often done alone, sometimes shared with a sister, a roommate, or a close friend. Combs glide slowly, deliberately. For men, the ritual is precise and practiced. Hair is dampened slightly, either with water or a quick splash from the sink. Pomade is scooped carefully, never too much, and warmed between the fingers. Then it is worked in, front to back, shaping the hair into something neat, intentional, and dependable. The part is clean. The sides are smooth. Stray strands are pressed into submission. There is comfort in this repetition. The motions are the same every time. They require just enough focus to quiet the mind. The reflection in the mirror slowly becomes familiar again, not the face from the workday, but the one meant for the evening. For women, the process is longer, more delicate. Hair has been prepared earlier, often hours before. Set in curls, pinned carefully, allowed to cool and hold. Now, in the final moments before leaving, those pins are removed one by one. Curls fall softly at first, then are guided into place with gentle hands. Brushes move slowly, shaping without disturbing the structure. Hairspray is applied with care, forming a light mist that settles and hardens almost instantly. Once set, the hair must not be touched again. This requires discipline. An itch must be ignored. A strand slightly out of place must be accepted. The style is fragile, and its success depends on restraint. The air carries a faint, unmistakable scent, clean, sharp, and slightly sweet. It lingers briefly, then fades, leaving behind a sense of completion. Hair, in this moment, becomes armor. It frames the face. It signals readiness. It tells the world that effort has been made, that rules have been followed, that one belongs. There is pressure here, but it is quiet. Internal. No one says it aloud, but everyone feels it. A good hairstyle does not draw attention. It avoids it. The goal is not admiration, but acceptance. Outside the mirror, the city continues to move. Time does not wait for perfection. When the final glance is taken, the decision is made: this is good enough. And good enough is exactly what is required. Stepping back into the hallway, hair held firmly in place, people carry themselves differently. Heads are held higher. Movements are measured. There is confidence, but not boldness. The transformation is subtle, yet powerful. On the streets, this collective effort becomes visible. The glow of streetlights reflects off carefully styled hair, highlighting shapes and silhouettes. Hats are worn strategically, removed when appropriate, placed back on gently to avoid disruption. A breeze passes, testing the work that has been done. People instinctively angle their heads, protectively, minimizing exposure. This dance with the elements is familiar, almost unconscious. Hair must last the night. In crowded spaces, awareness sharpens. People stand just far enough apart. They turn sideways when passing. Apologies are exchanged more often now, quieter, more deliberate. Everyone understands the stakes. Inside subway cars, the challenge intensifies. The warmth is heavier. The air thicker. Crowds press closer. People hold onto poles carefully, adjusting posture to maintain balance without disrupting their carefully prepared appearance. A sudden stop sends bodies swaying. There is a brief moment of tension, then recovery. Hair remains intact, coats are straightened. Calm returns. These small victories matter. They reinforce a sense of control in an environment that rarely offers it. Hair, in the 1950s, is about more than fashion. It represents order, stability, the ability to present a composed version of oneself, no matter how unpredictable the world becomes. And on a night like this, that control feels especially important. As people arrive at their destinations, apartments, clubs, halls, the lighting shifts. Softer. Warmer. Mirrors appear again, offering one last check. A curl is nudged gently. A side part smoothed once more. A stray hair is tucked away. Then the moment passes. The night begins to claim its toll. Heat, movement, time all conspired to undo the careful work. And slowly, almost imperceptibly, hairstyles begin to relax. A curl loosens. A part softens. A bit of shine dulls. But instead of panic, there is acceptance. This is part of the ritual too. As hair loses its rigidity, people loosen with it. Shoulders drop. Laughter grows easier. The night becomes less about control and more about presence. The effort was necessary, but it does not need to last forever. By the time midnight approaches, few hairstyles look exactly as they did at the start of the evening. And that is okay. It is expected. The city, after all, is not kind to perfection. And in this gradual unraveling, something else appears, something more human, more real. Hair falls into natural shapes. Movement becomes freer. The carefully constructed version of the self softens, allowing something quieter to take its place. The armor is no longer needed. Because once the night is fully underway, once the city has absorbed everyone into its rhythm, appearance becomes secondary. What remains is presence. And with hair finally yielding to time and motion, the night takes another step forward, closer to laughter, closer to connection, closer to the moment everyone has been moving toward since morning. Midnight is coming. And New York, glowing and alive, continues to carry the story onward. As the evening deepens and the city settles fully into night, there is one more familiar stop many people make before committing to wherever the hours ahead may lead. The corner deli. It stands quietly on the edge of the street, neither grand nor anonymous. Its windows glow steadily, a warm rectangle against the cold darkness. Inside, fluorescent lights hum softly, illuminating shelves packed tight with ordinary things that suddenly feel essential. The door opens with a small bell, announcing arrival without ceremony. Cold air slips in briefly, then disappears as the door closes again. The warmth inside wraps around you immediately. This place feels different at night. During the day, the deli is a waypoint, quick, efficient, functional. But on New Year's Eve, it becomes something more. A last anchor before the night fully takes over. People come in wearing coats meant for longer journeys, gloves tucked into pockets, scarves loosened slightly, faces already carrying the hint of anticipation. Behind the counter, the shopkeeper stands as always, steady and observant. This night is busier than most, but it is not surprising. The rhythm is familiar. Items are scanned, bags filled, change counted. There is comfort in the predictability. Shelves are stocked with quiet necessities. Bottles of soda, small cartons of milk, coffee in paper cups for those who need one more burst of warmth. Candy wrapped in bright foil. Simple snacks stacked neatly, waiting to be chosen without much thought. Cigarettes sit behind the counter, requested with quick, practiced words. Matches are added automatically. No explanation required. These purchases are rarely indulgent. They are practical, comforting, small preparations against the long night ahead. People linger just slightly longer than usual. They stand near the counter, shifting weight from one foot to the other, scanning shelves they have already seen 100 times. It is not indecision, it is hesitation. A pause before committing to what comes next. Conversations happen here, too, brief and unguarded. A comment about the cold. A remark about how crowded the trains are getting. Someone asks if the shop will stay open past midnight. The answer is calm, reassuring. Of course. The deli does not close early tonight. It rarely does. It exists for moments like this. Regulars are greeted with nods. New faces are treated the same as familiar ones. The deli does not distinguish between them. Everyone belongs here equally, if only for a few minutes. Outside, people pass by in steady streams, coats brushing, footsteps echoing. Inside, time slows just enough to notice details. The hum of the refrigerator units, the faint smell of coffee and paper, the soft rustle of bags being filled. The bell ringing again as someone else enters. Each sound is small, but together they form a rhythm as recognizable as a heartbeat. Some people eat standing up, leaning against counters or shelves. Others simply hold their purchases, warming hands around cups or bottles before stepping back into the cold. The deli allows this. It does not rush anyone out. This is not a place of celebration. Exactly, but it supports celebration quietly, reliably, without demanding attention. For many, this is the last stop before heading underground, before entering a crowded apartment, before stepping into music and voices and movement. The calm here feels deliberate. A moment to collect yourself. A moment to be alone, even among others. Outside again, the night feels sharper by contrast. The cold presses in. The streets seem louder. The glow of lights feels brighter. The city's energy is unmistakable now, no longer contained. People adjust their coats and move on. Some head toward subway entrances, their steps quickening. Others turn down side streets, carrying bags that hold nothing more than soda, cigarettes, or snacks but somehow feel essential. The deli fades back into the background, its glow receding as the night absorbs everyone again. And yet, its presence lingers. Because in a city this large, comfort comes in familiar forms. A place that looks the same year after year. A counter that has not moved. A bell that rings the same way every time. These small constants matter. As people move farther into the night, these quiet anchors become part of the memory even if they are never mentioned later. Hours from now, when voices are hoarse and coats are damp with melted snow, when trains are crowded and patience is thin, someone will remember the warmth of the deli. The simplicity. The brief pause. They won't name it. They won't analyze it. But they will feel steadier for having had it. Because New Year's Eve is not just about where you go, it is about how you get there. And the corner deli, glowing steadily against the cold, is one of the many unseen supports holding the night together. With purchases tucked away and resolve renewed, people rejoin the flow. The streets carry them onward. The city hums louder now, closer to the moment everyone has been circling all day. Midnight draws nearer. And New York, patient and unchanging, continues to offer its quiet comforts one small stop at a time as the story moves forward. With the night now fully awake, the question that lingers quietly in the background begins to surface more clearly. Where to go next? In 1950s New York, this question is rarely answered with certainty. Plans exist, but they are flexible. Invitations are extended without strict expectations. The city offers too many possibilities to commit too early, and so people allow the night to unfold gradually. Friends gather on sidewalks, just outside apartment buildings or subway exits, their breath visible as they talk. Someone suggests a jazz club they heard about. Someone else mentions a hotel ballroom where a band is playing. Another shrugs and says maybe they will just walk for a while. No one insists. No one rushes the decision. This is part of the rhythm. Groups form and dissolve naturally. Two people break off to meet others. Someone lingers behind, tying a shoe or adjusting a coat, then catches up again. Movement is fluid, without drama. There is comfort in this uncertainty. In a time before constant coordination, missed connections are expected. If you do not find someone right away, you try another place. If plans change, they change. The night allows for it. Jazz clubs hold a special pull. Tucked away behind modest doors or down narrow staircases, they glow softly from within. The sound of music spills out in fragments, brass notes, steady rhythm, a piano line drifting into the street. The air inside is warm and dense, layered with sound and motion. People step in carefully, adjusting their eyes to the low light. Tables are close together. Conversations blend with music. No one demands silence, but everyone understands how to listen. This is not spectacle, it is atmosphere. Others are drawn to hotel ballrooms. These spaces feel grander, more formal. Chandeliers cast warm light across polished floors. Bands play familiar tunes, and couples move carefully, aware of their steps and posture. The night here feels contained, structured, reassuring. There is safety in predictability. Apartment parties offer something else entirely. They are crowded and imperfect. Furniture is pushed aside. Coats pile up in bedrooms. Drinks are poured generously, sometimes too much so. Laughter echoes off walls not meant to hold so many voices. These gatherings feel personal, intimate, even when the room is full. No two parties are the same, and that unpredictability is part of their charm. And then there are those who choose none of these options. They walk. They wander through the city with no destination in mind, letting streets guide them. They pause at corners, listen to music spilling from doorways, watch crowds flow past. For them, the city itself is the celebration. Times Square looms in the distance, bright and unmistakable. Even if they do not plan to go there, its presence is felt. It acts as a compass point, a shared reference everyone understands. Streets seem to bend toward it. Crowds subtly drift in its direction. Some resist, choosing quieter neighborhoods instead. Others surrender to the pull, curious or determined. Subway stations are filled with indecision. People stand on platforms, debating directions. A train arrives, doors open, and choices must be made quickly. Step on, or wait for the next one. There is no right answer. Inside the cars, conversations overlap. Too crowded. Let us try downtown. Maybe later. Plans are revised in real time, based on instinct rather than information. There are no updates to check, no photos to preview. You decide based on feeling. The night rewards this intuition. As trains move through tunnels, people glance at each other with quiet excitement. Strangers exchange smiles. There is a shared understanding that everyone is headed somewhere meaningful, even if they do not know exactly where yet. Above ground, streets near entertainment districts thicken with activity. Lines form outside clubs. Doormen manage crowds calmly. People wait without complaint, adjusting coats, stamping feet for warmth. The wait is part of the experience. Inside, music pulses. Glasses clink. Conversations rise and fall. But even here, no one stays forever. People drift in and out, carrying the night with them. A club is not a destination, it is a chapter. The same is true of every stop. What matters is not where you are at any given moment, but how the night keeps moving you along. Each choice leads to another, and none of them are final. As midnight approaches, the city feels both crowded and spacious. Crowded with people. Spacious with possibility. Some realize they have gone in the wrong direction. They laugh it off and turn around. Others find themselves somewhere unexpected and decide to stay. There is freedom in this lack of precision. New York encourages it. The city does not demand a plan, it offers opportunities instead. Doors open. Music plays. Lights glow. You step in, or you keep walking. Time passes without being tracked. Watches are checked occasionally, but not obsessively. Midnight will come whether you are ready or not. The exact moment matters less than the experience leading up to it. As groups finally settle, choosing a place to stand, to sit, to stay for a while, there is a sense of arrival, but not conclusion. This is where we are, for now. People lean in closer. Voices soften or rise depending on the space. Drinks are lifted. Music becomes more noticeable. The city holds them there, gently, until it is time to move again. Because on New Year's Eve in 1950s New York, the night is not something you conquer or complete. It is something you travel through. And as the hours continue to pass, step by step, street by street, decision by decision, the city carries everyone forward toward the same inevitable moment. Midnight is coming. Not as a surprise, not as a climax, but as a shared destination that everyone will reach, no matter where they are when the clock strikes. The story continues. As the final minutes before midnight approach, something subtle begins to change. It is not announced. No bell rings. No signal flashes across the city. Yet people feel it all the same. Conversations start to circle back toward time. Someone checks a watch again, this time more deliberately. Someone else asks how close it is to 12. A bartender glances at the clock above the shelves, then back at the room. The night, which has been drifting freely for hours, now begins to narrow its focus. In ballrooms, the bandleader leans toward the microphone and mentions the hour. The music shifts slightly, becoming more familiar, more ceremonial. Couples adjust their posture. Friends pull closer together. In jazz clubs, the mood grows quieter between songs. The audience listens more closely, aware that each note now belongs to the final stretch of the year. In apartments, someone turns down the radio just enough to hear it clearly. Another person pours one last round, careful not to spill. The city holds its breath. Outside, sidewalks are still busy, but movement slows. People stop walking and start gathering. Corners fill. Doorways become temporary meeting places. Even those who planned to be somewhere specific often end up somewhere else entirely. It no longer matters. What matters is being present. Times Square, now fully alive, becomes the symbolic heart of the moment. Not everyone is there, but everyone knows it exists. Radios mention it. People talk about it. It represents the idea of togetherness more than the physical place itself. Crowds press closer, bundled in coats and scarves. Faces glow under bright lights. People crane their necks upward, even if they can't see the clock clearly. There is anticipation, but not frenzy. The countdown, when it begins, does not feel rushed. It unfolds naturally, number by number, carried by voices rather than screens. 10. 9. 8. In bars and living rooms across the city, people join in. Some count loudly. Others mouth the numbers silently. A few simply listen, smiling. 7. 6. 5. The city feels unified in a way that is rare and fleeting. 4. 3. 2. 1. Midnight arrives not with chaos, but with release. Cheers rise from every direction, layered and overlapping. Glasses are lifted. Arms wrap around shoulders. Hats are tossed into the air, sometimes retrieved, sometimes not. The music swells. In ballrooms, couples move together more closely now, less concerned with formality. In clubs, applause breaks out between songs. In apartments, laughter fills every corner. Outside, strangers embrace briefly, sharing the moment without names or expectations. Someone shouts Happy New Year to no one in particular, and several people shout it back. It feels genuine. This is not a performance for an audience. There are no cameras hovering, no screens capturing every expression. The moment exists, fully and briefly, only for those present. Kisses are exchanged, but without spectacle. Some are playful, others tender. Many are quick, followed by laughter or quiet smiles. For a few seconds, time seems to loosen its grip. Then, gradually, it resumes. The music settles into a steady rhythm. Conversations restart, slightly louder now, warmed by celebration. People check on one another, asking how they are, where they have been, how the night has gone. Someone says, "Can you believe it is already the new year?" Someone else replies, "It went by fast." These observations are universal, repeated every year, yet they never lose their meaning. Outside, horns sound sporadically. Laughter drifts through open windows. The city exhales. There is a sense of accomplishment, even though nothing specific has been achieved. Simply making it to midnight feels like enough. People linger in their spaces, reluctant to move on too quickly. The night still belongs to them, even though the year has changed. In Times Square, the crowd slowly begins to thin. Some leave immediately, eager for warmth or rest. Others stay, savoring the atmosphere a little longer. Street sweepers wait patiently. The city prepares to reset itself. In neighborhoods far from the center, the celebration is quieter but no less meaningful. Families gather around kitchen tables. Friends sit on couches, shoes kicked off, coats forgotten. They talk about the year that ended, but without analysis. Specific memories surface, trips taken, challenges faced, small victories remembered. There is no urgency to define the past or plan the future. The new year feels wide open. Music continues to play, but softer now. Dancing becomes casual, unstructured. Some people drift toward food, suddenly aware of hunger they ignored earlier. Laughter comes easily. There is comfort in the familiarity of these moments. They repeat each year, yet they never feel identical. The city, too, settles into a gentler rhythm. Traffic resumes gradually. Lights dim in some buildings, stay bright in others. New York does not sleep, but it does pause. As the first minutes of the new year pass, people begin to consider what comes next. Some will continue celebrating into the early hours. Others feel the pull of home, of warmth, of rest. Neither choice feels wrong. The night has fulfilled its promise. It brought people together, moved them through streets and spaces, allowed them to share something intangible yet deeply felt. Midnight was not an ending. It was a crossing. And now, on the other side, the city carries on, slightly changed, quietly renewed, ready to hold whatever comes next. The story, however, is not quite finished yet. Because what happens after midnight, when the crowds thin, when the music softens, when the city begins to return to itself, reveals something just as important. That is where the final meaning of the night settles in. And that is where our story will conclude. After midnight has passed and the excitement begins to soften, the city enters its quietest phase of the night. Not silent. New York is never truly silent, but gentler, slower, more reflective. The crowds that filled streets and doorways start to thin. Groups say their goodbyes without ceremony. Coats are pulled tighter. Scarves are adjusted. People step away from the glow of celebration and return to the steady rhythm of ordinary movement. This is the moment most rarely remembered. There are no countdowns now. No announcements. No shared focus pulling everyone in the same direction. Time stretches again, becoming personal rather than collective. Subway platforms grow less crowded. Trains still arrive, but with fewer voices echoing through the tunnels. People sit quietly, leaning against metal poles or resting their heads against windows. Some close their eyes, exhausted in a pleasant way. Others stare ahead, letting thoughts drift. The city feels older in these moments, more like itself. Above ground, streets glisten faintly under streetlights. Bits of confetti cling to corners and doorways. A stray party hat rolls across the pavement, pushed by a light breeze. There is beauty in the aftermath. Street cleaners begin their work, methodical and patient. They do not rush. They know the city will look different by morning, and that is enough. In apartments, gatherings wind down naturally. Someone washes glasses at the sink while another stacks plates. Music is turned off or replaced by something softer. Conversations become quieter, more intimate. People talk about nothing in particular. They mention how cold it was outside. They comment on how crowded certain places felt. They laugh about a wrong turn taken earlier in the night. These small observations matter more now than big reflections. Eventually, guests begin to leave. Hugs are exchanged. Promises are made to meet again soon, though no dates are set. Doors close gently behind them. What remains is a calm, almost sacred stillness. Those who walk home feel the city differently at this hour. Streets that were once loud now seem spacious. Footsteps echo. The sound of distant traffic hums like a low heartbeat. Windows glow softly. Somewhere, a radio still plays. Somewhere else, laughter fades behind closed doors. The night feels protective. There is space to think, if one chooses to. Some people consider the year ahead, imagining possibilities without pressure. Others let their minds go blank, content to exist without direction. Both are acceptable. The new year does not demand answers immediately. In 1950s New York, this pause is especially meaningful. Life moves quickly during the day. Work, routines, expectations all resume soon enough. But for these few hours, the city allows rest. Not sleep, exactly. Reflection. The idea of resolution exists, but it is gentle, not imposed. There are no lists being written, no declarations being broadcast. Change, if it comes, will arrive quietly. Morning approaches slowly. The sky lightens almost imperceptibly. A faint gray replaces deep black. The city prepares itself again, without ceremony. Bakeries begin to open. Delivery trucks appear. A few early risers step out into the cold, unaware or unconcerned with the night that has just passed. For them, it is simply another day. And yet, something lingers. Those who were awake through the night carry a subtle awareness with them, a shared memory of movement, sound, and togetherness. They do not need proof of it. They lived it. This is what New Year's Eve in 1950s New York ultimately offers. Not spectacle. Not transformation. But continuity. A reminder that time moves forward, whether we mark it or not, and that meaning often lives in the spaces between the moments we choose to remember. The city does not reset itself at midnight. It evolves, 1 hour at a time, shaped by the people who pass through it. And on this particular night, those people did not try to control it. They listened. They wandered. They gathered, separated, and gathered again. They allowed the city to carry them from one year into the next without resistance. By morning, the evidence of celebration will mostly disappear. Confetti will be swept away. Chairs will be stacked. Floors will be cleaned. But the feeling remains, quietly stored in memory. A night where nothing extraordinary needed to happen. A night defined not by what changed, but by what continued. And in that gentle continuity, the city finds its truest rhythm. This is where the story ends. Not with an ending, but with a return. To streets, to routines, to the steady unfolding of time, unchanged, yet subtly renewed. Just like New York itself. As we bring this story to a close, it is worth pausing for just a moment longer. Not to analyze, not to explain, but simply to sit with the feeling of it. A city moving through time. People passing through one night together. No grand conclusions. No dramatic turning points. Just continuity. New Year's Eve in 1950s New York reminds us that history is not always shaped by loud events or sudden changes. Often, it is shaped by quiet choices: where to walk, when to stop, who to stand beside, and when to finally go home. The night does not demand meaning from us. It offers presence instead. And sometimes, that is enough. If this story helped you slow down, even for a few minutes, if it allowed your thoughts to drift, your breathing to settle, or your imagination to wander gently through another time, then it has done exactly what it was meant to do. Thank you for spending this moment with me. Thank you for listening, for resting, and for letting history unfold quietly. Wherever you are, and whatever time it is for you right now, I hope your night is calm and your thoughts are light. Good night. And I will see you in the next story.